Hey everyone, Doug here. Quick overview of Meeting Closer for you. Let's talk about what happens when you close a meeting using iMIS. Well, you get activities written for the event. Those activities are called meeting. Activities are optionally written for things like functions, CEUs. Those are pretty important. They tie into certification. They're basically credit for attending a given function. Think of a class that you're going to get credit for. And speaker activities. These are rarely used. And basically, in the old days, you kind of could create an activity for the speaker at the actual event, if you will. So you could track how many times someone spoke at an event. But then iMIS does something nasty and it purges all the data from orders. That's the main event, all the financial side of how much I paid for the event and how much I owe. Order lines, those are all the functions that I signed up for. And order meet, some additional demographics, things that just don't fit in the order table. And all that data is erased from iMIS. And then it can optionally, if you're not careful, purge the entire event setup from iMIS. So if you have an annual conference that runs every year, and you kind of use the old one as a template. And by the way, templates are coming to the next version of iMIS, but let's just say you're using the old one as a template and you go to clone it every year and someone accidentally purges it. Well, then you need to start from scratch. With Meeting Closer, we also write those same activities, meeting. We also optionally write activities for the functions, a little bit like iMIS, but even better. The CEUs, the speakers, of course, speaker activities. And then this is the best part about Meeting Closer, no data is erased. But you can hide the meeting from iMIS, and that helps clean up the open events window. That was one of the main reasons that people wanted Meeting Closer because iMIS was just getting, if you had a ton of meetings, that to find a meeting in the event window in the desktop was just, it took a long time. So, what are some of the advantages of Meeting Closer? Like I said, no data is deleted. And that is really important because think about this right now. If you want to report off of closed and open meetings using iMIS and you have closed the meeting using iMIS, you've got to look at both the activities table and the orders table because the activities table has all of the closed event information and the orders has all the open. So if someone hasn't closed a meeting from January, you better know that that's in the orders table, but they decided to close a meeting from February. Well, that data is now in the activity table. So the great part about Meeting Closer is that you're going to be able to continue to report off of the data in orders, order meet, and order lines. It's untouched. I like this a lot. You can reopen and reclose events. So think about an event that you close because you're staying on top of the game, and then you find out there were 5 additional registrants that someone took on a piece of paper and forgot to put in iMIS. If you've closed that event using iMIS, it's too late. There's nothing you can do. But with Meeting Closer, you can go ahead and reopen that meeting, add in those registrants, and then reclose the meeting. That gets super important if you're using CEUs, right? If you're those continuing education credits, and you know what, those 5 attendees needed to have those CEUs because they were trying to keep their certification up to date. Well, that's real easy with Meeting Closer. You can actually go and add CEUs after the fact. CU dates are correct. Well, what does that mean? Well, when iMIS creates it, it used to, I think it still does, use the date the event is closed. So if you had an event in January and you decide to close it in March, those CU activities are in March. And that's a problem because what if it was very important that they took that credit in January? So that doesn't work very well. So iMIS will actually create the CU activity using the function end date. So if I have a function called class, and we're going to go ahead and test the people or whatever, and we're going to track their scores in there and all that. I need that function activity to be in January. It needs to be the date of that class, not the date I closed the meeting. That's super important. So Meeting Closer is going to use that end date of the function as the CEU activity date. And if someone forgets to put a function end date in there, then it jumps to the actual meeting end date. So it actually has a little bit of a backup there so that it can check that. You can close multiple meetings at once. This is super powerful. Highlight a whole bunch with Meeting Closer and just close them. Really easy. We had a customer once said it took me longer to install it than it did to close 50 meetings. The install is super fast, but closing 50 meetings was really, really fast. And all you got to do is highlight the meetings you want to close and click close/hide. I like this. In iMIS, you have to go in as you're setting up the event and choose which functions in that meeting are going to actually create an activity. Well, that's great. At the end of the day, when you go to close the meeting, do you remember if they did it right? Well, with Meeting Closer, you can actually see all the functions that have been flagged in iMIS and use it if you want. Or even better, Meeting Closer is going to allow you to see those functions and change them. So, what if someone set up the event and didn't click that we wanted a function for the awards ceremony, that we wanted an activity created for the awards ceremony? You can see that in Meeting Closer and go ahead and add it so that you will get an activity for the awards ceremony when you close the event. You're not going to get that in iMIS. You're going to have to go look at each function to see what's set up. Meeting Closer gives you a nice view into the entire thing there. Couple important things about Meeting Closer. The function activities that Meeting Closer makes are called function. iMIS's are meet function. And you're probably like, well, why didn't you change to iMIS? Well, no, actually, people have been using Meeting Closer for a lot longer than when iMIS started finally creating meeting functions. It didn't do that in the beginning. Meeting Closer was way ahead of the game. So we have a lot of people that have a lot of activities called function, and we're not going to go and make them change all the reports and everything because ASI decided to make a different activity type. Meeting Closer does hide the meeting from the Meet Master table. What it does is it moves the data from Meet Master into CSI Meeting Closer. It takes that record for the event and moves it. That's the one thing it does. It doesn't delete data, remember that, but it will hide that, and that's optional. So that's when you want to hide it from iMIS. So we include a view called Meet Master View that is a union of both of those tables. So all of the data in Meet Master and CSI Meeting Closer becomes one again. That's actually going to be the best view to use for your reporting. So if a client has Meeting Closer, you probably want to use Meet Master View if you're trying to get a list of every event that an organization has ever had. Finally, because the orders stay out there, it's hard to purge, right? You're not going to be able to purge someone or delete someone if they have a meeting they went to because we don't delete the meeting activity, the meeting itself. So you do need to modify the purge routine from iMIS desktop, and the details are in our instructions, which are online, our documentation, if you will, which is right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. Here is Meeting Closer, and you'll see that we've got all of these things in here. And so when we talk about cleaning up the open events window, this is what we talk about. Think of a client. We actually had a client that had 10,000 meetings a month. I'll let you guess who they were, but they had 10,000 meetings a month. So you can imagine how many were in here, and they just needed to close these meetings on a regular basis, and they needed to close a lot on a regular basis. So, by the way, it was the AMA. And so we wanted to be able to clean up that meeting. So when we look at Meeting Closer, we can see here are all the meetings that are there. And by the way, I didn't mention the thing. It will also do expositions as well. I don't have any in my demo database, but it'll do meetings. So here's my annual conference, my registrants. Let's just go down and find a smaller one. Here's one, my section meeting. You can see I had 5 registrants. Great. What's going to happen here? We're going to generate my meeting activity. We're going to generate my function activity. If there's any speakers defined, they're going to get it. I'm going to hide it from the hidden meetings, and I want to generate my CEUs. And we took this out. We're always going to use that function end date, if you will. Let's go and see which functions are going to get activities. If I click that, there's only one function in there, and it's going to get an activity. So you may decide in this case, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to get this is a meeting with a single function. I'm going to get a meeting activity for it, and I'm going to get a function activity. That's kind of a waste, so I can exclude that function from getting an activity. Notice down here, only include functions with the create detail activity option selected in iMIS. That's what I talked about before. In iMIS, when you set up an event, you can choose which functions get an activity created. So we can say, go read from iMIS and see how it's set up, and then use that information. So if I click that, that function was not set to have an activity. So there we go. I'm going to return. This is all set, ready to go. By the way, this is very powerful. You can do a full search on here. So you can look for certain meeting codes, titles, or date ranges. So say you wanted to close all of your 2019 events, you could just choose that date range. And then what you would do is you would go up here and just select all the meetings you wanted. So we've got our chapter February one, and if we go over here, you'll see it's in this fun little thing. There it is, chap February section meeting. Perfect. Let's go ahead and close hide this meeting. Sure you want to do that? Yes. It's done. If we go back over here to iMIS, it shows, and if we say define an event, it is now gone. No more chap Feb. So someone comes in here and says, I need to clone the chap February event. You can just go right back into meeting closer, go right there and say show for cloning. When I do that, it reappears in iMIS. So when I say define an event and I look for it now, chap Feb, notice it is closed. So if I did need to add records to this, I would have to edit this and make that active. So then I could add additional registrants or adjust my CEUs or anything like that. So that's the main part about Meeting Closer, where it's going to actually allow you to reopen a meeting, and then it actually just unhides it, and then you can make it active. Notice we have a warning here. I've excluded an activity. Remember, I've decided not to make an activity for the chapter February. So there you go. So that is Meeting Closer in a nutshell. You can install it on as many PCs as you want. It uses iMIS security. You need to be a level 4 or higher in events, I believe, to run Meeting Closer. And not 100% sure about that. We should check that. But that's the product. Thanks.